Corey Bernardi, and doing my best Marilyn Monroe there, Stephen Conroy. Lovely to see you both. Let's get into this here this evening. There's plenty to talk about. All right, Victoria, a few days away. Look, let's be honest here. Andrews is in the box seat. The only big worry is maybe going into a minority. I hope that there's 19 little revolutions no one's paying attention to and there's a magical result we talk about this time around. But let's be honest, Stephen, and obviously everyone who's fluent in Stephen will be able to hear what he's not saying in the next few minutes. Does the Premier have a problem with women? Because any politician who does loses.
Well, I've seen that reporting based on some policy announcements made last week. From any of my understanding of what's, the public polls have said, some of the private polling, I'm not being told, and people wouldn't necessarily tell me, but I'm not being told that there is a significant issue with women for Daniel Andrews. I think the sort of way you've referred to the election as, it's already all over, Daniel Andrews is going to win, helps reinforce the chance that there could be a major upset in a minority government. I don't think Matthew Guy could form government in the minority, and Andrews is more likely to, but I think if you remember my bold prediction last Sunday,
correct,
Paul, I said this was going to be a much closer election than most people are anticipating. And there is a real prospect that Labor could lose seats and possibly enough seats to, whether it's to the Liberals, to the Teals, to the Greens or to independents and safe Labor seats, that we could slip into minority government, unfortunately. I hope that's not the case. My gut tells me we'll be 3 or 4 seats up by the end of the night, which could be, a long few days going into the middle of next week before we could absolutely nail down that we'll form majority government. But people shouldn't underestimate that there is a backlash that is showing up in the polls, whether it's more from women than from blokes. No one's put that to me, but there's certainly a backlash there for some of the pandemic issues over the last few years.
Corey, again, he has to lose 18 seats to lose his majority. I hope that there's 18 little revolutions somewhere. There might be 15 according to the worst-case scenario Stephen just sort of talked about there before we start to get into postal voting and all the rest of it for the next few days. Make for a fun election night next Saturday night. Of course, everyone eyes here on Sky News. But, Corey, back to that central point. This bloke's been in charge for 8 years. A week before the election, he's finally got a fix to a problem that killed 33 people. Who would fall for that?
Well, unfortunately, far too many people, Paul. This is the frustration that politicians have been able to get away with failure after failure after failure. They've been aided and abetted in some instances by sympathetic media treatment. You've also got inept and hopeless oppositions who struggle for oxygen and to actually make a coherent point. And Andrews is a beneficiary of it all. It's quite extraordinary. But if I can just go back to what Stephen said a moment ago, acknowledging that there's likely to be a backlash against Dan Andrews, I think, is Conroy talk for, yes, there is a problem with women there. And I say that because if there wasn't a problem with women, the direct question would have been, no, not at all. He's very popular with women, because I know how politics works. And there wouldn't be a drift to the Teals if there wasn't a problem with, some of the perceptions of Labor. Now, I still think Dan Andrews is going to get over the line, whether it's a minority government or a slim majority government. I'm with former Senator Conroy there. But there has to be a backlash. I think people are waking up that this is a government that I don't think has upheld the probity, the responsibility and the integrity that we should come to expect from Australian governments, Paul.
But also what I find frustrating is again, if you watch the granular like we do, which hasn't been that granular, it's been massive, everything from COVID to the ambulance stuff, the integrity stuff, you name it, right? Yet how it always works is let's find some candidates on the other side who say stupid things or are connected to silly things. Oh, that becomes equal loading of scandals. There's the VEC who just decided during the election to pass something on to IBAC that they've had on their desk since August. But again, this seems to work, which is people bitch and moan, and I noticed this in Queensland, Stephen, where people will bitch and moan about a government for 3 or 4 years and then can be completely distracted by the 2 weeks before the election and fall for the election ads, then go straight back to saying, oh, I didn't vote for them. But somebody obviously does.
Well, look, you've got a circumstance in Victoria now where both political parties are running their ads, what we say, weighted heavily on the negative. So it's clear that Labor's research says that Matthew Guy is, very, very unpopular out there with the broadest Victorian public. But equally, the Liberals' research appears to say that Daniel Andrews is really, that backlash we've talked about, is building a head of steam because all they're running are ads attacking Andrews. And even their tagline of put Labor last, again, just sends that message. So I think both parties have dropped down to the lowest common denominator and are running pure negative ads in the hope that they can muddy up the other side enough that you forget how bad your own side is in politics and you'll somehow help them get across the line.